Hello, everyone. This is Mike from the On the Stack podcast at iceworm.org/magic, back with another deck building video. I'm going to be showing you my green-white Bolster deck that I've been using lately. This fits into the standard format of Magic the Gathering. So we're going to take a look at our lands. I have 12 forests, and after that I have 8 plains. I have 2 blossoming sands. They enter the battlefield tapped. You gain 1 life when they come into play, and they can tap for either green or white. And I have 2 Windswept Heaths. You put this into play, you can tap it, pay 1 life, sacrifice it, and put either a plains or a forest into play. It's a good way to get the mana you need when you need it. And if you play it early enough, losing 1 life isn't going to hurt you that badly. So it's a good way to get a land out when you need it. We're going to move into our creatures. I have 2 Anok Artillerists. It's a 4/1. It costs 2 colorless and a green, and it has the ability to gain reach if it has a 1/1 counter on it. I actually won a game with this a few nights ago where I had it buffed up to a 10/7 through the use of a couple other bolster spells and a couple instants. So 4/1 can gain reach as long as it has a counter. I have 2 Avatar of the Resolute. It's a 3/2, just costs 2 green, has reach and trample, and it gets a 1/1 counter on it for each other creature you have that has a 1/1 counter on it. So it's a good way to, you play this when you have a few creatures that have counters, and you can get this thing buffed up pretty quickly. And it also, again, reach and trample, so it can, when it attacks, damage splashes over to the opponent, and when it blocks, it can block creatures that have flying. I have 2 Sandcrafter Mage. They are 2/2 for 2 colorless and a white, and they bolster something once when it comes into play. I have 2 Sandstep Outcasts. It's a 2/1 for 2 colorless and a white, and you get to choose one of the options to either put a 1/1 counter on it or put a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying onto the battlefield. For this deck, with it being a bolster deck and having cards be dependent on 1/1 counters, I usually go for the 1/1 counter option on this. So if you use this with, say, Avatar of the Resolute, you put the counter on this, and then Avatar of the Resolute comes in, and it will get a 1/1 counter because this has a 1/1 counter on it. Next up, I have 2 Sandstep Scavengers. They cost 4 colorless, 1 green. It's a 2/2 with Bolster 2. I have 2 Servants of the Scale. Just 1 green for a 0/0. When it enters the battlefield, you put a 1/1 counter on it. And also, when it dies, you can put X 1/1 counters on a target creature you control, where X was the number of counters on this creature. So essentially, it transfers its 1/1 counters onto another creature when it dies. It's a good way to essentially buff something up. So if you have something that's really powerful, when this dies, you can transfer those counters onto your other creature and make it even more powerful. And finally, the last creature I have, 2 Stampeding Elk Herd, which is 3 colorless, 2 green for a 5/5 with Formidable. So when it attacks, if creatures I control have combined power 8 or greater, creatures that are attacking gain trample until the end of turn. We're going to move into our enchantments. I have 1 Abzan Ascendancy, and you may be asking why I have a card that has black mana, and I do have lands that will be able to produce different colors of mana, so that's how I will pay for the Abzan Ascendancy. And anyway, it costs 1 green, 1 black, 1 white. When it enters the battlefield, you put a 1/1 counter on creatures you control, and also when a non-token creature I control dies, it gets replaced by a 1/1 white spirit creature with flying. I have 2 Glaring Aegis, just cost 1 white. It's an enchant creature. When you play it, you can tap target creature and opponent controls, and your enchanted creature gets +1/+3. I have 3 Market Festivals. They cost 3 colorless, 1 green. It's a land enchantment. When enchanted land is tapped for mana, I can add 2 mana in any combination of colors to my mana pool, as well as the mana that land produces originally. So say I play it on a forest, I can tap it, I get 1 mana from the forest on its own, and then 2 other mana of any color I want. So I can essentially pay for Abzan Ascendancy by just tapping this on, like say I attach it to a forest, tap the forest for green, and then with the land, the ability of this enchantment, add 1 green, or add 1 white and add 1 black to pay the Abzan Ascendancy costs. And the other land enchantment, I have 2 Sheltered Aeries, 2 colorless, 1 green. It's an enchant land. When you tap it, you add 2 mana of any one color to your mana pool. So I can say, I can basically play this onto a forest, and that forest now produces 2 green mana. Or you can also, when you tap it again later in the game, you can be whatever color you want. So the only colors in this deck are green, white, and the 1 black for Abzan Ascendancy. Finally, I have 2 Silk Wraps, 1 colorless, 1 white. When it enters the battlefield, exile target creature with converted mana cost 3 or less and opponent controls until Silk Wrap leaves the battlefield. It's a good way to get rid of something, say, like a Goblin Rabblemaster, because a Goblin Rabblemaster has just 3 converted mana. So if you don't want, goblins coming out every turn, you cast this on Goblin Rabblemaster, and it gets exiled until this gets destroyed. So if you're playing against a deck that doesn't have, either have enchantment removal, you're not going to be able to use that card again in the game. It's a good way to get rid of cards you just don't want to deal with. Into our instance, I have 1 Dromoka's Command, costs 1 green, 1 white, and you choose two options from this list. You can prevent all damage target instant or sorcery would deal this turn. Target player sacrifices an enchantment. Put a 1/1 counter on a target creature. Or also, target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. So you get to choose whatever the situation is. You would choose the options that best suit the situation. And you get to choose 2 of these options. Next up, I have Dromoka's Gift, which costs 4 colorless, 1 green, and you get a bolster something 4 times. So essentially something gets +4/+4. I have 2 Honor's Reward, 2 colorless, 1 white. You gain 4 life and bolster 2. Next up, I have 1 Ruthless Instincts, 2 colorless, 1 green, and you choose one of these options. Target non-attacking creature gains reach and death touch until the end of turn, or target attacking creature gets +2/+2 and gains trample until the end of turn. This is what I used on that Anarch Artillerist. It was up to, I believe, an 8/5 with a couple bolster spells. I played this. I played the target attacking creature gets +2/+2 and trample, so it became a 10/7, and I won the game with that. So obviously, if they have something that it's obviously situational. If you have a very powerful creature that you want to destroy, you can pay the cost and then use the first option to have non-attacking creature gains reach and death touch. So when their big creature attacks, you can block it as though it had block something with it as though it had flying, and also destroy it with death touch. Next up, I have 2 Scale Blessings. They cost 3 colorless and 1 white to bolster 1, and then put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it already. So you play this after something like Abzan Ascendancy, which gives a 1/1 counter to everything. You play this, bolster 1, and then add another 1/1 counter to all your creatures that already have 1/1 counters on it. Great way to increase the power and toughness of your creatures. I have 1 Shape the Sands, just costs 1 green. Target creature gets +0/+5 and gains reach until the end of turn. Good way to to buff something up to be able to block something that has flying. And finally, or not finally, I have 1 Solidarity of Heroes, 1 colorless, 1 green, and he has a strive cost of 1 colorless and a green, and choose any number of target creatures, and you double the number of 1/1 counters on those creatures. So you can do it 1 time for 1 and a green, or if you want to do it to multiple creatures, you pay 1 and a green for each other creature beyond the first one that you want to do that with. Good way to buff up your creatures. And finally, I have 2 Valorous Stance, 1 colorless, 1 white. Target creature gains indestructible until the end of turn, or destroy target creature with toughness 4 or greater. I normally go for the second option just because it's a good way to remove really powerful creatures from the game, and the cost is very cheap with only being 1 colorless, 1 white. That's going to do it for this deck video. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. If you like Magic the Gathering, check out the On the Stack podcast at iceworm.org/magic. And also, if you like Magic the Gathering, subscribe to this channel. And there's other Magic the Gathering deck videos on this channel as well. I want to thank you all for watching, and take care.